Hi, everyone. I'm Susan Haworth, step parent, counselor, and coach. And during today's video, we're going to discuss strategies for breaking free from hurt and anger and other limiting beliefs. With me today is Coach Erica Bennett. She's the creator of the Crazy Ex-Wives Club. Love it. So welcome, Erica. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you, Susan. I'm excited to be here too. I love talking about this stuff.
Yeah, let's just dig in. And, I just got to say, I love your podcast. It's very fun. I love the title, The Crazy Ex-Wives Club. I love that you approach the trauma of divorce with humor. And so I want to ask you a little bit more about how you got to do this. I know you have a background in corporate training.
I
So,
do.
what made you jump ship and pivot to being a divorce coach?
Right? Quite the pivot. I mean, a 180 in industries. But so yeah, I spent 20 years in corporate America doing sales and training and development. So my specialty was finding the behavior we needed to succeed. And as I got married and then I had a child, I started to realize that to be a really good employee, I needed to be a really good person, right? Like I needed to have enough sleep and I needed to eat right. And if these things were off at home, they were going to be off at work. And so I really started to dig into the mind, the power of the mind. How is the mind controlling us? How is that fear monster getting in the way of us achieving what we want? My entire life, I've been highly driven, high achiever. Whatever I set my sights on, I got. Well, my separation rolls around, and no matter what I didn't get what I thought I wanted, right? I didn't get the family to come back together. I didn't get him to own the mistakes and the hurt that he had created. And so it brought in what I had started to use in corporate. Now, for those of you that are in corporate, you know that what we want to train on is something we can observe, something we can see, or something we can hear, so that if it doesn't happen, we can write up that little development plan. And my heart knew that all of the mindset pieces were missing. Because really, at the end of the day, the behaviors are important, but the behaviors are 10% of what needs to happen. We have got to work on healing our emotions and our mind to be able to free us up to take the right behavior. So in 2021, I parted ways. I call it my second divorce because it was 19 years at that point with one company. I had grown up, I had figured out who I was there, parted ways, and started my own company to help people empower them to know that they are creating everything in their life. You do not have to stay stuck in any of the pain, the anger, the frustration. I mean, those things had taken over my entire life. I was not where I wanted to be because everybody else was doing things wrong. And if they just did it correctly, my life would be easier. And so I really wanted to help people understand that all that can be changed. You don't have to sit in the pain and the anger, the frustration, any of those negative emotions. You have the power to change it. And so that brought me to where I'm at now. The podcast launched in 2023. You don't have to be crazy to listen, right? You don't even have to be an ex-wife to listen to the Crazy Ex-Wives Club. It's all about that emotional healing journey that we have to go through.
Yeah, yeah,
My emotions ran my life. They really did. And I was so unhappy. And
sure.
so,
You know, I love that you said too that you don't have to be an ex-wife to get benefits from your podcast. So you work with women primarily, some men, on helping them overcome their blockages, their limiting thinking, beliefs to get to where they want to be. What are some of the most common blockages that you witness?
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I would say the biggest block, and it's probably not the one you think I'm going to say, but the biggest block is that people choose to stay the victim. They
Mm.
choose to blame and project outward. And so they sit in a space of, well, he did this to me. And how dare they do this to me? Any of those, like they take away, they don't see that they too co-created the situation that they're in. And I can sit in a place, I had infidelity in my marriage. I can sit in the place that, yes, he did that. But that was not the thing that broke the marriage. It was the last thing that got found out, but there were a lot of other places before. And so the biggest block and the biggest thing that I help people see is that you are a co-creator. Whether or not you want to admit it, you had a hand in bringing you to exactly where you're at in your life.
Yeah.
And the good part is that means you have a hand in changing it, and it doesn't have to stay.
That is so great, Erica. You said the victim mentality is not what I might have expected or others listening. Well, it is what I would expect, because I do deal with a lot of step parents, especially stepmoms, who feel that they are a victim either of their exes or their partner's exes.
Yes.
So what are some of the strategies that you recommend to get unstuck?
Yeah, or they really feel like they're a victim to the kids. I see that a lot too. I can't change anything. These kids are now impeding on my life. And I felt that way. I'm now a step parent and I had that same like frustration. Okay, so how do you get unstuck? The first thing that I look for are the patterns. Okay, we can spend a lot of time chasing smoke and mirrors and chasing, what I call shadow boxing. We think that this is the problem and we solve that problem and poof, it arrives somewhere else looking a little different, but feeling the same. And so to get unstuck, you're going to want to take that first step back and look for what are the patterns that we continue to fall into. Is there a topic we're always fighting over? Is there a feeling that I'm always feeling or upset with? Is there something that I'm always looking to be acknowledged on? That's telling you the core problem, the root that we need to get to. Because, we can continue like mowing your grass, right? You can mow that grass every single week. We can cut off the tops. Oh, it looks so good. It feels so much better this week. But oh, there comes that weed again. Because if we didn't pull that weed out by the roots, we can spend a lot of busy time zhuzhing the top, making it look good, making it feel good without actually solving the problem. So if you've found the pattern, the next thing that I would have you do is remove the fear and the resistance to the fact that you don't have an answer right now. So fear gets us stuck. It gets us balled up. We can't find our way forward. Okay, so what does fear look like in this situation? I don't know how to fix this. I'm so frustrated. This is never changing. This is never going to look any different. Oh my God, is this what I have to settle with for the rest of my life? Those thoughts, right? They almost spiral in a little corner of our brain, create a little tornado, they take over, and we can't even hear the fact that there are some other ideas percolating. There are some other solutions that are coming up. So if you find yourself stuck, if you find yourself deep in a pattern, the first thing you're going to do is take yourself off the hook and say, okay, I see it. I see it now. I'm going to put a pin in it. I'm going to find a solution to it. But today it's okay if I don't. I did the first thing and I can see what it is. And that will help you start to be able to find other solutions or other ideas to be able to try.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, fear is really the most powerful emotion we have. And it is at the root of a lot of things. And, one of the things that I talk about in my practice is there's nothing that will help you feel more out of control than being a step parent.
Yes.
And so so when you can't control things, or you have the illusion that you could before, which was, not true, but that is the fear. Oh my gosh, what if I let go?
Yeah.
What's going to happen around me if I can't control this outcome or have the illusion that I could control? So in your working now, you work with divorced women primarily. Is that true?
Separated. So separated or divorced, but women who they're either in that I'm so stuck. I don't know. I know I'm unhappy, but I don't know if I should leave or if I should stay. Or women who are like, okay, I made the decision, but now what? I thought my answers were going to be done with signing of the paperwork. And it's just the beginning of a whole new path.
Yeah, yeah. So So obviously there's that feeling of the ground shifting beneath you and lack of control. And the impulse is to blame other people. And so how do you break through that impulse to get people to really look at their own behavior? Because that there's a lot of resistance there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and how would you do that if I sent somebody to you, if I referred somebody to you
Yeah.
who was feeling like, you know, blaming everybody for this, that, the situation they're in, the kids not behaving well.
Mhm.
Um, how would you approach that kind of person who is stuck in blame?
Right? We wish we could just tell them, but
Yeah.
we often can't. You know, what I like to do is start with one of those problems that they're stuck in blaming on. And then we start to rewire it. So, you know, the thought patterns we have, they create little pathways in our brain. And the more we walk them, the easier it is to find them. We could virtually walk them with our eyes closed. We can run on them very quickly because we do it all the time. You know where the speed bumps are and what's happening. And so to rebuild a new neural pathway, we have to go step by step. So the first thing that we have to do is go as general as we can. Okay. So is there one specific one you could think of off the top of your head? Like one specific example that you want
Yeah,
me to
yeah.
work through?
So, you know, I am on a mission, right, to untangle the web of the bio mom and the stepmom. It is a very contentious relationship very often. Doesn't need to be so, but it is. But stepmoms are easy people to blame, and
Mhm.
bio moms are easy people to blame.
Yeah.
So we blame each other. And so, in the case where a stepmom might blame the ex, her partner's ex,
Yep.
for all the problems they're having, for the kids misbehaving, for um, her life not running smoothly,
Okay.
what what would you say to that person?
Yeah, so because a lot of times what probably comes up, they'll get real granular, right? Like, oh my gosh, the kids, I'll use one of my examples. Kids are on the tablets all the time. This is so annoying because the kids are on the tablets all the time because the mom allows them to have tablets at mom's house. They're fighting all the time. They're overstimulated. I can't get them to do anything else. This is so frustrating. And now, you know what? Now I have to clean up her mess because now they're here with me this weekend and I got kids who are fighting and can't handle themselves. And if she could just do what she's supposed to do as a parent and hold the rules, then my life would be easier.
Right.
Okay. Right? This is the big emotion that comes out. Okay. So now we're going to look at it and we're going to say, okay, first we're going to acknowledge it. That is really hard on you. You are looking for acknowledgement that what you're doing is hard work, right? So we're going to acknowledge it. That does suck. At the end of the day, it's a difficult place to be in. You're having to deal with somebody else's kids. You're not able to control the details, right? So when you start to acknowledge those big emotions, what happens is they start to deflate because emotions are getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger because they are demanding to be heard and seen and felt and acknowledged. So let's acknowledge it like a little balloon, right? Some of that air is coming out. Okay, they're starting to calm down. All right, so that you're right. That is not ideal and that is really, really difficult. So what happens for you when the kids are on their tablets all the time? What do you feel about that? Right? So the second part is I need to understand where are their preset expectations, judgments, belief patterns around what it means to always be on the tablets. Okay, so for me in my example, what I had was, well, when you're always on the tablets, you are not able to self-entertain because you're used to some tablet entertaining you. And because the tablet goes really, really fast, you now are overstimulated, and that's what's causing more of the fights. So I, in this situation, 100% felt the tablets were the root of all evil. The tablets were the reasons they fought all the time. The tablets were the reason there was chaos in the house. And so I showed up and tried to say, no tablets, restrict the tablet time. Okay.
Mhm.
So we've acknowledged it. Now I've uncovered what are these other things that are in there. The third step is we challenge them. Is it really true? Is it really true that the end all be all reason that they are fighting with each other is because they just lost on a game? Well, it's a little more complicated than that, right? If you had asked me, I'd say, well, they're overstimulated and they're heightened, but they're getting really frustrated right away and they're kind of going 0 to 60, right? It's complicated. Okay. Is there something else that would help them calm down? Well, if their feelings were acknowledged as well, this is just big feelings and a little body coming out. So we can start to now challenge it and say, is there another option? Now, in this situation, what ended up happening is I thought tablets had to be gone. Like I was like a tablet detox for 2 weeks. I don't want to see them in the house. Everybody
Mhm.
needs to regulate. This has to happen. And of course, my partner was like, yeah, that's not really going to happen. But
Mhm.
we did reduce it. We did reduce it. And it didn't change what was happening. But when we started getting down with them and teaching them how to regulate their emotions, whether they co-regulated with one of us or now they learn to regulate on their own, all of the problems went away. So guess what? They're still doing whatever they want at mom's house, and tablet time is the same. And at mom's house, they're still having big reactions and big fights and big problems. And at our house, they can be on tablets all day. Like if we had an event, right, we're, at a Christmas party or something, they're on tablets a lot more that day than they are at home. But guess what? When they get frustrated, one of them puts it down and walks away and goes find something else to do. If we hear them start to get elevated, we can say their name and they're like, okay, and they take their breaths and they've learned what to do. And so guess what? Where I showed up as I am so mad at her because I'm cleaning up her mess all the time, turns out that it just was a kid needing a little bit of help and everything changed around it. Nothing has changed from their mom. Nothing has changed in what she's doing, but everything has transformed in my own world because I was willing to look at the judgments I had around tablets. Why did I
Mhm.
feel so strongly that it had to go away? And then, was there another alternative? Was there something I could control? I can't control the tablet time. What can I control? Well, I started mirroring really fast how to regulate your emotions, taking deep breaths, taking a break. We'd talk a lot about how do you get your system back in control. And now they're able to do it. So when we have these blame protective mechanisms, because that's what they are walls that you have built so that you don't get hurt. And when
Yeah.
we start to take them down, at first it might feel really scary. It might feel like, oh, I can't just blame their mom for their problems. That's not what it is. This is the situation I chose to be in. This is a partner I chose, and these are the kids that came with that partner I chose. And so what can I control and how can I change my system so that it's no longer affecting me?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I think we all get stuck in binary thinking. And so if I am right, somebody else has to be wrong. The other party has to be wrong. And if
Yes,
I start looking at my own beliefs, this is a limiting belief. If I start looking at my own beliefs and thinking, well, maybe there is another way, that's scary. That is scary for us to
it is.
acknowledge that maybe I wasn't right, you know?
I would say there's probably two phrases that my family is tired of, and it's big emotion hits, and I'm always going, pause. And that's everybody's
Yeah.
cue to take a break. Like, hold on, momentum building, wrong direction. And what is the third alternative? There's your way, there's my way. What is the third alternative? How do we stop me versus you? Because then
Mm-hmm.
one of us has to be wrong. How do we move the problem to be this other thing out here? You and I united are working on that problem. Or maybe you and I not united, but you're working on a problem out there, not fighting the other person.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, opening up, and this is, why I talk about humility. And I know, some people are confused about what that means, but humility means looking at things from a more objective standpoint. I mean, we can't totally do that, but that other people be may have a better way of doing things, and allowing other people to change and allowing yourself to change. That is hard. That's really hard, is to go back and say, I was
Yeah.
wrong about that. You
It is
know,
really, it is really hard. I was the queen of control. I had everything down to a science by the minute, by the thing that had to happen to make sure everything was perfect. And the reason I wanted everything was to be perfect is because the less speed bumps that happened, the less what I thought was the greater my happiness and the less my frustration. But the more places I tried to control, the greater my frustration got because there were the more places for it not to go as I had dictated. And I'm only one person. There are lots of ways that things can get done. I think that was probably one of the biggest lessons for me in learning how to co-parent was that even if I have, because I love expertise and research, so even if I have all the research about tablets, let's stick on my favorite topic and give you all the reasons that kids shouldn't be on tablets as much as those kids are, does it really matter?
all right.
Are they still learning what they need to learn? Are they still happy in what's happening? And do we have some gaps? For sure. Is it really hard for them to self-entertain without a tablet? Yes, that's an opportunity. We just got to pick that up and figure out a way on how we're helping them through it. And I am in the last year, I've watched them completely evolve on that. So some of it is just part of doing what's working right now and seeing how it can shift.
Yeah, yeah. Letting go is the name of the game. And, I always say, you've heard me say this, Erica, that we don't have a crystal ball. And
Mm.
we can't, it is arrogant to say, I know exactly how these kids are going to turn out.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do my best, which
Mm.
is all that we can do, to make sure that they turn out a certain way.
Yeah.
And when that doesn't happen, we I don't know, we spin out of control.
Yeah. And I
So
was really guilty of that. I was really guilty of
sure.
that because I was like, no, I know what needs to happen. This is going to be the best thing. And this is why this needs to happen. And a lot of that came back to me having to challenge again my own beliefs and expectations. Why did that matter so much to me? What was my internal childhood wound that was asking to be validated? A lot of things come back to, I'm
Yeah.
your stereotypical middle child. It's got to be fair. It's got to be even. And so I used to get really irritated if they just got something because they didn't have to earn it. And I was like, why does it matter? Like, if they didn't have to do the same work that I had to do, would I have liked it without all the hard work? Yeah. So why am I imposing my my expectations or my emotions on it? And it always comes down to something that happened in my own childhood or my own belief system that I'm being challenged to let go and open up to see a different opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. I write for Stepmom magazine. I have an advice column. And over the years, I can distill the categories of the questions into two big categories. One is, how do I deal with this crazy ex-wife of my partner? Two, what about those entitled children? They're driving me crazy. They're spoiled, they're entitled, which, it's hard to witness. I grant you that. But what I found in my own case is that I wanted to be entitled. I
Mm.
wanted to be spoiled. And that hasn't panned out, you
Yeah.
know? So it's almost an envy, for these kids who have what I didn't have.
Yeah. I mean, how many times do we like, I had to work really hard for that.
Yeah.
Somebody else, all the buzzwords right now, they manifested it. Okay. Well, manifesting is a little more than sitting in a corner, but that always pushes a hot button. And everybody's like, oh, how come they get to have all this money, right? Or the young
Yeah.
YouTube stars out there making
Yeah.
millions. I worked my whole life.
Yeah.
Like, but would you have loved it if it went the other way for you? Okay. So you know, there's a big foundation in my life of constantly challenging myself to shift back to a lens of
Mm-hmm.
abundance. There is enough for all of us. There's enough space, there's enough money, there's
Yeah.
enough love, there's enough time. Because I think to your point of things are binary and it's me versus, his ex-wife, that's coming down because I've created some sort of a limitation, right? Either there's not going to be enough money or time or whatever it is, there's going to be enough for both of us. There's going to be enough for all the children that we have between our two blended families. And that a lot of times is what I need to switch back out of the me versus you. The like, oh, I got to prove that I'm right. Hold on. There's enough for everybody. If there's enough for everybody, how can we all win in this situation?
Yeah. Yeah. Envy is such a powerful emotion, and it's not pretty. We don't like to admit it, but we can learn a lot from envy about, what we feel is missing in our lives
Mm-hmm.
or was missing. So it can be something we can really use for our own growth.
Yeah.
One of the elements for me in getting over the trauma of my own divorce was forgiveness.
Mm,
And forgiveness is, it's for us. It's not for the other person. And I think that's one of the misconceptions is people think they're condoning bad behavior. That is not what it's about. It's removing the ball and chain from your ankle.
yeah.
And so let's talk a little bit about forgiveness and the power of that, uh, particularly forgiving our ex for not doing things the way we wish that had been done, forgiving our partner's ex,
Mm,
who we may have to co-parent with,
yeah.
and maybe not doing things the way we want them to do.
Mm.
Um, so, what are the elements in your experience of how to get to that place of forgiveness?
Yeah, I love that you asked this because this is the biggest block to maintaining that blame and maintaining that victimhood, right? And it comes down to being able to forgive that person for the wrongdoings. So at the end of the day, we all make mistakes. Every single one of us has done something that has hurt somebody we loved. 90% of it, probably not intentional. Okay. The majority of us are not intentionally reaching out to hurt somebody that we love, but it happens because we are humans having a human experience. And so, one, I thought about when I am not at my best and I'm angry and I'm emotional, or I got a real fiery tongue, right? So it's like I get poked and I'm like real fast. I thought about the fact that if that were me, I would want somebody to extend grace and allow me to make mistakes because I'm not perfect, even though I try and authentically my heart is try so hard to always be in the right place. I'm not always on point. Sometimes I need to eat. Sometimes I didn't get enough sleep. Sometimes I react in a way that is not something I would do. Okay. So I looked at it first and I was like, all right, I'm not perfect. Then the second part of it was understanding that hurt people hurt people. I think that there's a couple different parts of forgiveness in this. If we look at, my marriage, my ex, there was a lot of pain on both sides. There is nobody who gets through a divorce that doesn't have two people very hurt. Even if
Mhm.
one of them shows up with anger and retaliation, that is driven by a lot of deep hurt that has happened. So, if hurt people, if there was infidelity, I had to figure out how to forgive him for what he did. And I really started to look at the fact, I did a lot of research on why people cheat, what causes somebody to do this. I started to look at, wow, if he's really unhappy and he's just trying to reach for something, and you know what? He made a mistake. It didn't mean that I was okay with what he did, but it meant that I was no longer going to blame him for that aspect of why the marriage failed because I was really unhappy. I was not fun to be around. I was, again, controlling everything. So crabby and angry and bitter and just a real pill. So I get that. I can own that part. We moved through the next layers of forgiveness. I had to learn how to deal with the other woman because she stayed. for a lot of years. They moved into an engagement. She moved in. She instantly moved into trying to step parent our child, and she was young. So now we had a new level of forgiveness. I had to look at somebody. So I was 35. She was 21. And she's walking in thinking she knows what's best.
Yeah.
She sent text messages about how my ex and I needed to grow up and we were acting like the children in this situation. She felt she had all the answers, right? And so that hurt. Ooh, that hurt a lot. And so how was I going to forgive her? Okay, I had to go back and now I had to put myself in her shoes. And I had to think through this and I had to say, well, she knows what she got herself into. She knew she was, dating a married man with a child. She also probably didn't really know what she was getting into. The emotions that come with it, the jealousy that comes with it, trying to parent a child of a brand new, fresh divorce. Like the day she texted me that my child slapped her in the face because she told him to finish his cereal and he didn't want to. Okay, I giggled a little, but I also felt really bad, right? Like I was like, ooh, unacceptable. There's a boundary that's not acceptable behavior out of my child, and we gotta stop. There's too much going on. So to forgive her, I had to look at the fact that at her core, was she a good person? Yes. Did she always make the right decisions? No. Was she truly trying her best? To her capacity, she was. Whether or not I felt like she could have been different, to her capacity, she was. And so then I had to let go of expecting her to be somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't know what we don't know, as the expression goes. And people are doing the best they can. I mean, if they could be any different, they would be.
They would,
So
'cause they're not happy either, right? So here's
no,
the thing, you're pissed at the, bio mom. If you're the stepmom, you're pissed at the bio mom. Guess what? That bio mom's not happy either.
right.
So you got two people who are both not happy, who are both doing things that are creating more unhappiness. Can you stop that chain? Can you do the work to be like, you know what? She's maxed out too. Let's extend a little grace. Let's have a little humility for what's going on and just put some space in between it.
Yeah. Yeah. As I said, the bio mom and the stepmom are easy targets. And it's like I've often said it's like we're following the role of central casting, of two women at each other competing,
Yeah,
who's going to be the best. And then we somehow let the men off the hook.
we do, but
Um,
I do have a theory on that.
okay, what's your theory?
My random theory. No, it's not that random, but so we always let the men off the hook. Or if the men show up this much, we're like, oh my gosh, look at
Oh
what they,
my God, if they're breathing in and out, that's what I always say. Oh,
right?
isn't that great? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just having this conversation. I was like, if the dude shows up and just at a bare minimum gets food on the table, but lets the kids do whatever they want the rest of the time, we still are like, wow, he is trying so hard. So why are we so ready to jump on the woman? I
Mm-hmm.
think that there is culturally, we
Mm-hmm.
have created the biggest trophy around whether or not you are a good woman
Mm-hmm.
according to those traditional roles. Did you build a loving home? Did you raise good children? Are you able to love and care for and provide what they need? And at the same time, we've completely changed as a society, right? You've got women in the workforce, you've got women as the main breadwinner, you've got single parents that are out there, right? For all the years that I was single parenting. So we seem to have not been able to let go of the fact that there is so much more than these stereotypical roles that we assigned women. So the moment a woman messes up and feeds her kids fast food for the week, how dare she? Does she not really love them? But
Right.
if the dad did that, we'd be like, hey, you know what? They had dinner together. That's a good thing. So we spend a lot of time poking, again, me versus you. There's not enough for all of us. And what it really comes down to is that we as women have always felt that judgment. We've put that judgment on ourselves. And so when we're full up with it on ourselves, what do? We point it at somebody else so that we don't feel so bad about ourselves. So like the next time you think about judging somebody, right? Like a great example is, wow, what is she wearing? I would never wear that. Okay, let's dig into that. Why do you feel that way? Well, doesn't she know what she looks like? Doesn't she know that that's
Mhm.
not the current standards of beauty? Okay, why does that matter to you? Well, I would never do that. Why? Well, I would feel judged. You'd lack self-confidence. You'd lack enough self-love. This is somebody who could care less what you think about what she looks like. She loves what she looks like, and she is out there wearing what she wants to wear. And the reason you're judging her is because you won't do the same. You are holding yourself to standards that you have set, that you are going to be judged or hurt or held accountable to. And so you're not letting yourself do what you want to do. But if you did, you'd stop judging her for it. And that's a lot what comes down in our step parenting stuff too, right? Like, oh, if she did this better, or if she did, like, we got to stop attacking each other and just say, you know what? Everybody is trying their best.
Right.
Do I have any capacity to help out a little bit more? Yes or no? And if the answer is no, that's okay too, because you have got to protect your own boundaries to take care of yourself, or, put your own air mask on first on the
Right.
plane versus somebody else. But if we all just asked ourselves, can I help out a little bit more? Think about how that would change your interactions with everybody.
Absolutely. This has been a great conversation, and we're going to wrap up soon. But I want to say there's so many opportunities in going through difficult uh, journeys, difficult going through a divorce, being a step parent. Those are opportunities for growth. There
Yes.
are opportunities to look at our own behavior and to be better versions of ourselves, just to keep growing and learning and saying, that probably wasn't the best way to approach it. I can do better.
Yeah.
So, it's a gift.
I,
Some of these things, some of these hard times, they're gifts if
yeah.
if we make them so.
And that's the thing. If you make them so like when I get in a thing, a point of clarity, there's some frustration, there's some fight that's happening, there's some like I'm really annoyed. A lot of times I just pause and I tell myself, and I'm like, oh, you're being called to grow. You're
Yeah,
being called to learn something differently, to do something differently, to expand in a new way. And guess what? Growth is hard and growth can be uncomfortable and growth can be really good for you. So, like, if that thing shows up and if you're really struggling, just remind yourself, oh, I'm growing right now. And
right.
in 6 months and 12 months, when you've grown through it and you've learned how you want to show up for it, it's going to seem like such a little thing. So, like, keep working at it.
And I had a friend who used to say it's another one of those effing growth opportunities. Yeah,
I like that. I
I
like
do
that.
too. So, Erica, couple things. Is there anything that I neglected to ask you that would have been really important to talk about?
See, we got through forgiveness. I think that was really important. We talked about rewiring the brain. No, I think we really got it, like remember that there's no one right way. Remember
Right.
that the majority of your problems are coming up because you have an internal thing, a wound that needs to be acknowledged and healed. Know that growth is uncomfortable, but it's always in your best interest, and that you are really in control of how you want to show up, not in control of all the details, but how you want to show up.
Love it. Okay. And so, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me over at the Crazy Ex-Wives Club. So you can either find me on the website of the same name, the Crazy Ex Wives Club, along with Instagram. We're on all the social platforms, but I'll tell you that Instagram's the one that I'm in the most. You can slide right into my DMs. The email address is on the website or on the Instagram handle. Feel free to reach out. Let's set up some time and connect. We can chat. But I would just love to have you follow along, follow the account, subscribe, start listening to the podcast. Season 1, to give the podcast a little woot woot. Season 1, if you go back and start from the beginning, helps you understand how you're not alone. We look at some beautiful stories of real life transformation of how people got through their divorce. We look at learning to listen to yourself. We look at how the mind is the biggest gatekeeper to our real happiness. Season 2 is about your energy, right? Your leaky bucket. If your bucket is leaking, it doesn't matter how much self-care you dump into it, it's going to leak right back out. So how do you take care of you? And then season 3, we start to sprinkle in the details, like how do you thrive in your new normal? That's where, Susan, your episode is in season 3, where we talk about how do you deal with bio moms and stepmoms? How do you deal with conflict? We had a conflict expert on. So we've had a narcissist expert on. There's been a lot of good pieces in there too, but all of it is about your emotional journey and your healing, not about blaming. So love to have you guys
Yay.
follow and listen.
And of course, I will send out a link to all this to my community. So if you're not part of my community, please join us. Erica, thank you so much. We'll do this again for sure.
That would be fantastic. I just love having these chats. So thank you, Susan.
My pleasure.